Jamaica has been the home of many mysteries for centuries, but none greater and more widely known than that of the Rose Hall Plantation in Montego Bay, St. James, home of the White Witch Annie Palmer. Born in France, Annie moved to the beautiful island of Jamaica to be the wife of John Palmer, a very powerful man who owned the Rose Hall estate. It is not known if she came to Jamaica as cruel as she became, or if it had grown in her because of her wanting to get back to Paris. Annie was gravely feared by the slaves who lived on the plantation because she ruled with an iron fist, and the smallest breath of defiance was punishable by death. The reason is not clear, but after a few years Annie started taking slaves to bed and made them give her massages on a special chair in her room. And when she became tired of the present slave, he was killed and buried in an unmarked grave, and she simply moved on to the next slave. Her first husband, John Palmer, was said to have been poisoned by Annie, maybe because she wanted his wealth or just out of sheer cruelty. The mystery is still unknown. After cultivating the image of a tough and merciless mistress to keep pirates from invading the estate, it is said that Annie turned her sights to the teachings of voodoo. In order to gain favor with Annie, many of the slaves who were practitioners of the art of voodoo taught her everything they knew. Annie's knowledge of voodoo grew, and with her many sacrifices of infants to practice the black magic, Annie was now widely known as the White Witch of Jamaica. After just a few years in the practice, Annie had already poisoned and killed 2 other husbands who were assumably foreigners unacquainted with the reputation of Annie on the island. Little did Annie know that doom was near when her eyes fell upon a handsome young slave who was the fiancé of the daughter of her overseer on the plantation, one of the most widely educated in the practice of voodoo. But the overseer concealed his knowledge of voodoo from Annie for fear of his life. In trying to save his daughter's fiancé, the overseer sought to make preparations to protect the young man from Annie's disposable lover policy. However, he was too late, as Annie had changed her pattern and killed the young man the same night she had called upon him, instead of playing with him for a week or so. Perhaps he objected to her attentions and declared his love for another. Whatever the reason, the young man was dead, the overseer's daughter grief-stricken, and the overseer was filled with helpless rage. Annie was to die at all costs. Before confronting Annie, the overseer prepared a special grave in the woods within sight of the great house, which Annie was to be killed and her soul trapped. The overseer was said to have confronted Annie and killed her, sacrificing his own life in the process. After his death, slaves who knew of the overseer's intentions took Annie's body to the grave, designed to keep her from rising again, but failed to complete the ritual, and the White Witch of Rose Hall is said to roam the great house to this very day.